the key word you said is community, because
Mm-hmm.
what I always love about theater is, I always say community theater. I'm like so proud of being a part of community theater. And I care almost a little bit less about the theater and at least equally, and maybe a little bit more about the community, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I think is so great about it. And that's why when people like say, oh, community theater, I'm like, yes, community theater, exclamation point. It's, to me, it's
Yeah.
the greatest thing on earth. It really is.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Sweet Madness podcast, where we talk about everything sweet and everything mad and everything in between and everything that makes us crazy and love life. So today is a special episode, just like everyone is, because there are just so many cool things in this world. I have two of the founding members of a theater group that is titled Random Thursdays Radio Theater. And they're a great group. I've worked with them for, I think, probably about 2 or so years at this point, which is kind of crazy to think. And this kind of birthed from COVID. So it's a COVID baby. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dany and Peter. Yeah.
Yay! Hey,
Cue the clap track.
clap track, laugh track. Yeah, thanks for having. This is Dany Stravino. I'm, like Amanda said, one of the founders of the COVID baby, known as Random Thursdays Radio Theater. I can't remember exactly when we started, but like it really, like you said, like took off during COVID. So yeah, I just talked about. So Peter, my partner in crime on this one.
Yeah, this is Peter Carrozzo. Dany, I think it was like 2019, or 2018 even. And we just started reading, not even knowing what we were going to do with it. That was what was always interesting to me. We had no idea why we were reading these plays.
Yeah, and that's I think one of my favorite things about it is it really just kind of came out of nowhere for no reason at all. The reason why it's called Random Thursdays was because initially the intention was to record on Random Thursdays and just meet on Random Thursdays. I think we met for like 3 Thursdays in a row, and then like Thursdays no longer worked for anybody, so it became like whatever day happened to work. But it just came out of like Peter had some scripts we wanted to read. Yeah, like it came out of we wanted to read some scripts. We had this idea of maybe doing a podcast. We had this idea of maybe doing it like on the apron in Andrean Hall as like a staged reading, as if it were a radio show, which is something we're actually still toying with. We've been toying with that since the beginning. But it just came out of like a necessity for people to want to do weird stuff, read something like original, and then every time we read, one more person joined on. It just grew. Maybe it was you, me, Kim Larkin, Amelia.
Yeah, Amelia. Yeah.
Shout out to all our friends.
And
there you go.
Yeah, Monica. I think Monica Maddox, Nate Barzak.
When you invited Monica, Dany, when you invited Monica, I remember she said, "Oh, is this an Andrean Player thing? Is this there were so many different theaters." And then you said, no, it's kind of more of like a Peter and Dany thing. Like it had no affiliation, which I loved.
So for our listeners, what is specifically Random Thursdays Radio Theater? Like what is it? Because we're talking about reading and plays and all of that stuff, but like what was your thought to like create Random Thursdays? Like what was the drive behind it?
Yeah, I guess the thought was, so I had a bunch of scripts. I used to stage some plays in Manhattan and some theater competitions and with some other theaters and other places. And then I had a bunch of scripts that I didn't really know what to do with. Dany's one of my favorite actors. I'm not just saying that because he's on the podcast right now, but and then
I'll Venmo you. Thanks, Peter.
Absolutely. Because I'm the stage crew guy, so I'm always in the background watching people acting, except every now and then I'll come on stage, whatever. But anyway, and then Amelia Horn's also one of my favorite actresses. I've known her since she played Ursula in like Bye Bye Birdie in like 2000, and I don't even know what.
She played Ursula?
Yes, since that's how long I've known her.
That is a great role. I'm imagining it now, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, she's like
when I found that out, I was like, perfect. I wish I was
right?
I wish I saw that. I wish I knew you guys back then.
I'm trying to think. I think it was 2007.
Oh God.
But I called her Ursula for like the first 20 years I knew her too, because or maybe 10 years. No, you know what? It's like even early. It's like 2003. But and then so I wanted to do something with the plays, but we didn't know what. So then, me, Dany, and Amelia were talking. We were like, let's just start reading them in the basement of Andrean Hall, and it'll work out. And then we started reading them, and then when COVID came, I'd worked with the sound designer for another theater, and I asked her if her and her husband are the sound designers for this other theater that had a nice run, and then it was a podcast theater, and had a nice run, and then it ended. And I said, could you do sound design for this? And she said yes. And then we were going to meet in person in Manhattan in a conference room, and then COVID. And then she said, I can probably do this on Zoom. And we record ourselves on iPhones. So sorry, but once we got the idea of doing it this way, which we revisit in a minute, my thought was, I love old time radio. And I said, what if we were to do old time radio, but the plots are not really old timey, because they're really 21st century. So the idea is to have an old time radio show, like you're turning the dials, and all of a sudden you find this thing called Random Thursdays Radio Theater, and you have an old time announcer, which is my favorite part that I get to play.
You're great. It's like, honestly, Peter, it's like, when you like watch a Disney movie and you see like the star go across the castle, and you get like just like a rush of like, that's how I feel every time I hear one of the Random Thursdays episodes and your voice comes on. It's just it's pure gold. It's great.
That's awesome. Thank you, Amanda. That's really nice.
You're welcome.
That's awesome.
Came from like once we started reading them, like what to Peter's point, it's remember that like none of us were around when people would gather around after dinner and everything would be silent, and like there was no TV, there was obviously no digital, so the radio was the entertainment,
Yeah.
And when you, as a performer who, if anyone who sees me, has seen me on stage, will tell you I'm a very physical actor. Like I very much go into the body, like I'm very physical about it. So for me to become a voice actor was incredibly challenging because you were taking away something that I default to. Like that something was very comforting for me as a performer. How do you tell the story the same way? And we didn't want to go overboard with the like sound effects. We didn't want to make it too corny. We wanted to make it feel natural. So for me, when we started, I go, this is a real good like acting challenge. It really tests your chops as a performer to use your instrument in ways that you not necessarily like. You still have to enunciate and all the stagecraft, but you're taking something away. So it's when you lose a sense, how do the others become more enhanced?
Exactly.
And the stories, like Peter said, are all very 21st century. Like we're not talking, we're talking world breakup.
Dany just referenced my own play. That
a personal favorite.
It's about lobsters and talking lobsters
and one of the fans of Random Thursdays Radio Theater emailed me after that one and said, I never thought lobsters can bring me to tears.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I swear to God. Somebody whose kid was in the Andrean Players, who's one of our listeners.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm so glad someone listened to it.
That's how I always feel. That is so true.
Joining you guys, when Dany asked me, I think it was was it Seussical?
Yes.
Or it was after Seussical, and we were in Seussical together. I played the Cat in the Hat. Dany played Horton. And he's like, hey, I have this group. We just read random plays. You want to join? And then I was like,
what I said exactly.
and then I was like, yeah, sure, that's different. I haven't done like a playwriting like group yet. And you guys actually like got me to practice something that I kind of put on hold since college. And it was cool to like work that muscle again and kind of fall in love with theater in a new way, and also affect people in a different way. Because I was writing poetry before that, and I was like, okay, I'm not ready to write a novel. I know I want to write a children's book, but I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I have a bunch of short stories. They've gotten published in anthologies. And I was like, you know what? the play's the thing, because because it affects people in such a different way, because you're hearing actual dialogue and making those connections with those relationships, and then like you see yourself in it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, as a writer I'm connecting to people in a different way.
Right.
And it's it's so exciting.
And when I write too, I feel like it's very, you take a lot of yourself. I've only written a few, I've only written Carrozzo, I think. Was the only one that I wrote on Random
Which is
Thursday.
hilarious.
Yes,
It,
absolutely.
it comes from a lot of experience. It's for those of you who don't know, I was a retail manager for 14, 15 years. And Carrozzo, I think you can connect the dots on that one. I've met many of Karens in my life. So it just came from there, but it allowed me to express something from a different perspective with something that I knew very, very well. I also have a few other things in the works as well. I'm working on a show called Heavens to Betsy, which is about, it's a bizarre show about going back to work during COVID, but it's actually angels going back to heaven to get an assignment. That's all I'm going to say. It's I enjoy writing it. It's just I don't want it to get too heavy, but I also want to make sure that like it's a different way to express the way you process, in some ways trauma, in some ways joy, like how you see the world. Often, and what I love about Random Thursdays, total tangent, is a lot of my inspiration for plays comes from just looking at somebody on a subway platform or seeing an interaction in a restaurant and hearing the conversation. And in my mind, how would this have ended differently? Like, what would have happened if this person said that instead, And then you go from there. And Peter can attest to this. He's gotten many a random text at random times of the night being like, what do you think about X, Y, and Z?
It's true.
And then there'll be a barrage of just like musing. And then I'm like, okay, I'll work on that.
And Dany hit the nail on the head. The thing I love most about Random Thursdays is that, like Heavens to Betsy, I'm frequently, I don't say constantly, harassing Dany. We've got to finish this and record it. Finish it. I mean, it's his play, but I always love to just read it and just talk about it and work it out. And then likewise, I've been working on this play called Mondays with Nona for like 5-6 years. And Danny's constantly saying to me, you've got to finish Mondays with Nona. And those two plays will be in the 2024 season if it kills us.
Yes, absolutely. I actually was just reading Nona again today. Like,
that's what I mean.
I was reading.
Great.
It started with primarily like Peter, your plays.
Right.
And then it branched off into like us taking a crack at it.
Which I love.
Yes. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a community of support and positive feedback and thinking of ways to improve our writing and taking it to the next level.
Yep.
It's great. It's great to have that community.
And Amanda, you said the key word, community, because I remember when sometimes, because I've, obviously you guys know I've been from the Andrean Players. My dad was in the Andrean Players, handing me off as a 1-year-old because they didn't have babysitting one night when my mother had like a mother's club meeting, and he had to babysit for me that night. And he had to go down to rehearse for like, I don't know, like Oliver or something. And he has to go on stage and he hands me to one of the other actors and they're holding me as a baby. And this is the Andrean Players in like 1974.
Wow.
And that's what the key word you said is community. Because what I always love about theater is, I always say community theater. I'm like so proud of being a part of community theater. And I care almost a little bit less about the theater and at least equally, and maybe a little bit more about the community, which is what I think is so great about it. And that's why when people like say, oh, community theater, I'm like, yes, community theater, exclamation point. It's, to me, it's the greatest thing on earth. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to tag to what Peter was just talking about. So my Andrean Players, which is the group that Peter was talking about, my first show with you guys was Wizard of Oz, believe it or not. Like, I was around for a while, like just being just in the space, but just never having done a show. Wizard of Oz was 2015.
Right.
I played the Lion. Peter played Professor Marvel.
Right.
And the Wizard. And the show was kind of important because, like Peter said, it's all about community. Peter's dad, Rocky, who I adore with every fiber of my being, was the who rang that bell, right?
Yes.
Peter was that role. And his daughter, so there are 3 generations of Carrozzo in this performance of The Wizard of Oz. She was Lullaby League, right?
Yep, that's
She was
right.
a Munchkin.
Yep, 100%.
So it's just that to me is just so strong. The Andreans have been around potentially. I mean, like I could probably speak to someone to fact check this, but probably the oldest community theater in Queens,
Maybe
arguably.
continuing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's true. That was a pretty awesome experience,
Hmm.
and having Dany being a part of it, and you, I mean, I don't know if all community theater is like this, but the Andrean Players certainly is. It's all like on a wing and a prayer. It's like scotch taping stuff for
It
opening
certainly
night,
feels like it.
right? Oh,
100%.
and I remember Monica was Monica's first show, and then things were going wrong, and I felt bad because I had been watching Monica for years, and I'm like, this is such a nightmare. I was like, these poor people are never going to come back to my theater ever again, even though it's not my theater, but I think of it as my theater.
Mhm.
And then at the end of it, at the cast party, I said to Monica, I was like, geez, I hope you'll come back and forgive all the craziness. And she's like, it's kind of like a weird home for me. She's like, I will always be back. And that was just so nice, and I know Dany
Yeah.
is the same way, and it's great.
It's a home. It's a home away from home. And
Yep.
and a lot of people who are like, community theater, and you're like, community theater exclamation point. It
Yes.
really is the community that makes it worthwhile. And it also like teaches you like a lot of life skills that you think you already know, but you might not know the extent of it
Yep.
and the details of it, like teamwork and like, hey, there's no I in team, but with theater, there is, because you need everybody to concentrate on what their jobs are for it to work like a well-oiled machine.
It's true.
Correct.
And
The intention of understanding that you are a cog in this machine and how you function, consistency, hitting your marks, it brings everything together. It elevates everything.
Yeah.
It's you exactly right.
And
Yeah.
it's a good skill to have for life. And especially because theater is so based in telling stories and highlighting relationships, it teaches you social skills. It teaches you empathy and sympathy because you have to become another person. There's so many things in community theater, especially figuring out things that don't seem figure outable.
Right.
You
Right.
figure it out.
Yes.
You problem solve. So
Yeah.
community
Opening-
theater, exclamation point community.
Yes.
The greatest. Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
The greatest feeling is like, everybody working together, and no matter what, opening night is just hanging out there, and you got to be done. You got to be ready for opening night.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, I
gonna
built
happen.
scenery on the morning of opening and painted the morning of opening night.
Mhm.
My wife has come down to help me paint the morning of opening night because she hasn't seen me for like a week and a half, just so we can talk. It's like she's there painting with me because she feels sorry for me and she hasn't seen me, and
Mhm.
that's part of the community too. Just awesome. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And so I'm so appreciative that you guys started this and we've had that sense of the community theater while COVID was going
Yeah,
on. Like
that's true.
that was really great. Honestly, it was one of the things that kept me going. Otherwise, I'd be a couch potato.
I think what
Um,
COVID is what really gained its momentum.
It
Yeah.
really did. So I have a question for you guys. Why do you write plays? What's your personal mission statement, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
What is it about playwriting that like grabs you? What's the magic about it? What do you find endearing about it? Why do you do it?
I guess just having, I think, Amanda, you said about the mirror that you hope that your play is to other people.
Mm.
But I guess because I've just sat in some of my happiest experiences is sitting in a theater in darkness, watching something and like relating to what's going on the stage so much and saying, oh my God, that's me. But then I'm sitting there among a couple of hundred other people or 1,000 in a Broadway theater. But I'm having this personal experience with the story, the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're having a personal experience with a play that could be from 500 years ago for Shakespeare or whatever, or Neil Simon from 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's timeless. It's a time capsule. And then you're like, well, geez, if I write this, then maybe somebody 500 years from now, is going to randomly find Random Thursdays Radio Theater, as long as somebody keeps paying for the hosting, and you just, that connection is out there and you're part of that whole universe. Like to me, it's the greatest there. I don't go to therapy. I just write plays, instead of going for therapy, basically. Maybe I need both. I probably need both, but
I need both.
Right?
Well, I do both, and I
I
highly
do
recommend
both.
both. Yeah.
Me too. I'm with you, Dany. I do both. I journal, I write poetry, I write plays, and I go to therapy.
It's like, well, I do both, but part of like my journaling process is I just go into like my iNotes and like write stuff down. But in between these random iNotes are just jokes that come to me from seeing something stupid or reading something. Like I wrote this down, it's still on my fridge. And it literally says, I need to folk a smucking cigarette. I don't know why that is so funny to me. It just hit me. And I'm like, I need to write that in a scene somehow. And that's one of the things like that is part of like when I hear something, I'm like, I want to see how that would play out in like a real life situation. So I create this stupid world where Karen's telling somebody, things like that. But I also write only really when I'm inspired by something. It's something that I don't necessarily feel the necessity to come home and express myself through writing every single day. Like I'm fortunate enough to be part of a lot of organizations where like one of them being the New York City Gay Men's Chorus, which I love, NYC GMC on the Insta, plugging it. But we have our concert this weekend, and the thing is, every Monday from 7 to 10 is our rehearsal, and that's my sacred time with that community. Like there's very little that can get me away from that, and that allows me to express myself as a performer week in and week out with my friends who all come together just to sing and be together. It's an amazing experience. Writing is a different way. Writing is where something is so deep inside me and I don't know how to get it out, and I need to talk and I need to put it into pencil and paper. And oftentimes, a lot of things that are traumatic to me, little or small, this is not therapy. I have that tomorrow. We so that stuff out. But it gets cloaked in humor, which is part of the way that I deal with the horrors that you see every single day. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, and I don't know if we get backlash for this. I have to laugh sometimes. You just have to step back and just, like I've been around long enough, but very little surprises me anymore. So the way that I deal with a lot of it is trying to cloak it in some sort of humor and pull back all the filters and be like, let's look at this situation in like real New Yorker, like take off the rose colored glasses and be like, this is what it is. Like it's horrible, but like you have to somehow cope. And my weird way is writing through humor. Most of my plays are humorous. I don't tend to write anything very, very serious. It tends to be very lighthearted and fun. There will be like a aha, but it's never something that's really like, oh my God, I need to go sit alone for 20 minutes. I'm not that right.
So you literally take the madness and you turn it into something sweet.
It is a connection.
I do. I love that.
I love it.
Full circle.
It's another way of expressing yourself and getting, all that stuff you have inside out. Dance was where I started, and that's primarily where I used to. That was like my therapy. And then, it branched into theater and everything. But I danced less over the years, and I taught more, but I danced as a dancer less. And that is when I started to gravitate more toward really honing down on writing. And it's been a marvelous journey. What are your favorite Random Thursday episodes that have aired so far?
Oh my God, that's like asking what your favorite child is. Oh, that's rough.
You can have, it doesn't have to be the favorite, just name a couple and let's tell the people what they're about.
The most was I worked on it's called Dreams That You Dare to Dream. That one probably hit the closest to me as an individual, and I was fortunate enough to direct it. Peter wrote it, and I got to work with two people who I absolutely adore, Evan Palacio and Eric Nielsen.
What's up, guys?
Hey guys, shout out, miss you, text me, bye. So when I read the script, as much of a synopsis as I can give, it's about a couple, two gentlemen who have been in a relationship, or what the kids say, I guess, a situationship at this point, where one of them is married with a wife, and I believe they have children. I don't think we talk about that in the play. And the other one is out and single and in the community and as a bartender, and they've had their relationship, and it's the moment that after years the relationship finally ends. And when I
Mm.
read that play, I've seen that before. I've never been in that particular situation, but I've been in that situation where you've had that hard conversation about, I love you, but this needs to end. Like this is no longer working. And once I read it, I knew exactly where this scene took place on Christopher Street, what corner of this bar. I knew exactly where it was. So that was one that I really truly enjoyed working on. And because Edwin and Eric and I had a great relationship, it was such
Mm.
an amazing collaboration where they were saying, "Hey, can we change?" I was like, "You just do you." I'm like, "You are amazing performers. You are interpreting the script beautifully. Just go."
Mhm.
That was probably my favorite thing that I worked on. Peter, what's yours? Because I have a couple other thoughts, but I don't want to take over this conversation
Yeah.
right now.
Well, I thought the thing
Because I will.
about
You know I will.
the the thing about Dreams That You Dare to Dream is that it's one of those plays that you write and you have no idea. First of all, you don't know if you should even have, if I should have even been the person to write it. I don't know how to describe it. And just giving it to Dany and what he did with it, I thought was amazing. And it's funny because I was like really busy with work, so I had nothing to do with the rehearsals. I literally wrote a play, handed it to him, and I mean, there's several rewrites, obviously. And then he ran with it. And then the next time I heard it was when I was recording the introduction to it. And it was just weird just to have nothing to do with it after writing it, which was really cool.
Mm.
So I loved how that turned out. It's hard because any play in Random Thursdays that deals with someone who's like a loser or a ne'er-do-well or someone who's on the fringe of society or someone who's just like really down on themselves,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of characters like that, and I think I end up writing a decent number of those characters. Like we have two plays about a character named Neil that Dany plays, that is one, he just broke up with his girl, or his girlfriend just broke up with him, and he lost his job, and he's now doing a meditation app. And then later Neil's in COVID and he's on a Zoom meeting, and he hates his life and he wants to quit his job. So I don't want to say it's just the play itself, because when you write the play yourself, what you end up doing is hating more of it than liking it. Because you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
guys
I
both
do.
write and you're
Mhm.
like, nah, that's not really what I wanted to write. It's the best I could do though. So because I suck, I'm trying my best. You know what I mean? So I don't want to I can never say one of my plays is one of my favorite because it's everything that it wasn't that I wanted it to be. But I just loved characters who were just like pathetic. I like pathetic characters. I
One thing that
relate
you
with
kind of
them, I
talked about
guess.
that now that we talked about it, I'm kind of thinking about Random Thursdays is never really truly about like it's always, if you're watching a movie or like a play, it's always like the B plot. It's like the B plot characters or the leads in
Yes, yes,
But the leads or like the main characters, I'd rather say, in the plays that in Random Thursdays aren't that traditional hero ingenue
Mm-mm.
kind of,
yeah,
it's the underdog, it's the person you wouldn't suspect. But every experience I feel that has been written about in every single play we've been able to produce is accessible to everyone. Everyone has felt this
yeah,
way about in every single
Mhm.
character, like Neil, like that he was just somebody who felt neglected, who was just no longer important. He felt very down about himself, and he was at a very bad point in his life. I can't think of any person who's had a wonderful go at it your entire life. Everyone's been down at one point, and it
yeah,
focuses on that uncomfortable point that nobody really likes to dwell in, but we all live in. And
Mhm.
with the comedy that Peter infuses into it, it makes it so accessible and it lightens it, but you also still go like, you know what, like it's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be
yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
fun.
Boil Breakup is a perfect example of that.
Yeah,
It's
I was gonna say it's my lobster play. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
who
pathetic, sad lobster
mhm.
whose girlfriend doesn't,
Who's
who's falling out of love, or
who finds out that the whole premise of his life is a lie.
yes,
Yep.
it's
Like,
great.
lobsters mate for life. My
Wrong balls.
It's wrong. Yeah, it's
Yes,
wrong. And honestly, Peter, when you gave me the assignment to write like a scene, I was like, I have no effing clue what I'm gonna write about. And I think I was rewatching Friends. So,
Okay.
and
There
it
you
was the
go.
episode where Phoebe was like, he's her lobster. Lobster's made for life.
Yeah,
And then I
that's
was like,
funny.
do they really though? And then I Googled it and there was like a bunch of evidence that said, no, that's a lie. And I
It's
was
so
like,
awesome.
wow. Okay. So let's open up this play with a lobster couple about to die in a pot of boiling water. Let's give those crustaceans a cerebral cortex to feel emotions. So
Eh,
and then it just turns into a weird Toy Story thing where the human who is also in a really bad spot with his relationship,
Right.
they form a
Right.
bond.
Yeah. I love Boiled Breakup because it's just so weird, but it's so relatable while it's
Mhm.
weird. And then you forget that it's weird and you just relate to the lobsters, which is even weirder. And I like weird and I like pathetic. So it's you know, and it's
Yeah.
funny.
And
It's
another
the
thing that
It's
trifecta.
funny.
one thing that we also do with Random Thursdays that we didn't really talk about is we consciously try to reuse characters or repurpose them in different situations. So a couple off the top of my head, we have Clinton. Clinton was
Yeah.
in the guy who invented the shirt. Clinton comes back in Mondays with Nona. Clinton was also in Karen Eddie's. Clinton might be the most popular resident of Random Thursdaysopolis. It's a
Yes.
city I just made up.
Guys, we created our
No, but
whole
that's a
universe
fun
here.
part of it.
There's a universe. Yes.
There's a universe. I
How
love
about
that.
in Dreams That You Dare to Dream? Eric buys the shirt, but he says he's going to buy a T-shirt from Dot Your I's and Cross Your T's, which is the T-shirt shop in the guy who invented the shirt. It's like
That's
the
right.
store.
That's right. I
The
forgot
store's in
about
his
that
neighborhood,
little Easter
and
egg in
Eric
that.
made that up. Eric made that up. We didn't make
Yeah.
that up.
This happened all serendipitously at first, right? And then
Yeah.
when we noticed it, we
Yes.
started like putting them in. But
You're
at
right.
first, it was a little serendipitous.
You're totally right. Yes. Well, even the
It's
character of
amazing.
Rachel, as I wrote the character Rachel, is nothing like the way you portrayed it so much. You gave it life. You know what I mean? Rachel wasn't
Oh,
what
thank you,
Rachel
Peter.
was until you played Rachel. Yeah. Which was fun. Rachel was like a
And
frazzled
that's
mom, and you
that.
turn Rachel into a character everybody hates and loves at the same time, you know?
I'm glad I could do the hateful character and make it likable, the likable hating character.
Yes, yes. She's the
We've been
person who
so
makes
fortunate to have such amazing performers that we worked with
oh
who
my
just
God.
taken
Amazing.
scripts and words and played with them and just had
Yes.
fun with it. And they'll be like, oh, I oftentimes people say, like, I changed this word. It's honey, it's
Go
fine.
for it.
You know, like
Yeah.
please
Yep.
go for it, you know.
You got the right
And like we've
people
changed
with
character perspectives based
yep.
off of people with like if you want to join Random Thursdays Radio Theater and you have an interest in exercising voice acting, and absolutely, like we're just always looking for more people.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
it's the more the merrier. We have so many scripts in the pipeline, you know, that we just want to get read, and it's just see what happens with them. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No egos, no jerks, no attitudes.
No.
Just fun.
Which is rare.
I think so. In
Which
theaters.
is it's in
Yeah.
theater. It's really rare to have such a nice, caring, and helpful group of people without egos and drama getting in the way. It's so great. So, if people want to get involved or know about Random Thursdays Radio Theater, first of all those episodes that we talked about are all on where you stream your podcast, and I will drop links to them in the description. We mentioned quite a few, so I may just drop the link to our channels. And also, Peter, Dany, where can one find Random Thursdays on the interwebs?
So if you search www.randomthursdays.com, we have a website. All the plays are there. You can click on them and go to SoundCloud and listen to them. If you search Random Thursdays on Spotify, Apple, like you said, it's there. The website has the history of Random Thursdays. It has the biographies of all the actors. It has biographies of a couple of fake actors, including Loudon Caulfield Jr., our announcer from 1940. So you can read fake biographies, real biographies, see some great pictures. So check out the website.
So, do you guys have any pointers for people out there who want to start writing plays or scenes? Do you have any?
Just get it on paper.
Yeah.
You know, just get it on paper, write it down, type it out. You can always go back and edit. You know, you can always go back and change a word. You know, like get that first thought on the page. You know, it's always intimidating to be like, is this going to be good? Who cares? Just get it on there, get it out.
Write for the garbage can, as they say. Just write for the garbage can, and then some good will come from it. I like to start with something that makes me really happy or something that makes me really sad. That's like a good starting place.
You start from the extremes.
Yes,
You start from the extremes, which oftentimes when if you happen to be in an emotional state, whether you're like, life is going great, oh man, I can feel I can do anything, or you're like down on your luck and need to figure out what the hell is going on in your feels, that's what usually happens. It's usually like really happy or really sad. Yeah, guys, I'm attesting to what they said. Let it go to let it flow. You've heard me say this a bunch of times on this podcast. Let it go to let it flow. You gotta let it out. Just do it and it'll flow. It'll come. I'm not saying it'll happen immediately, but you will find the bread and butter of what you're trying to write the more you work at it. If you don't work at it, then you're not writing and you're never going to see what it's going to be. So let it go to let it flow.
And my other advice is read as much as you can.
Yeah.
Even if it's an article on BuzzFeed, like obviously, like I read the classics, I don't think that's mind-blowing advice.
Yeah.
But just read what you can, read what you like. I love to read autobiographies by female comedians. I find different voices from the authors. You listen to these voices, you can hear how they express their emotion, and you can connect with them or not, but on top of just let it go, let it flow. Read as much as you can when you can. It's just going to inspire you further, and it's just going to make you a better writer.
I'll watch like The Honeymooners or a Twilight Zone, and I'll be like, oh my God, this is a writing lesson right now. Just watching the way characters are written. And, like an episode of The Honeymooners, there's like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and all of life takes place and everybody relates to it. And it was written 70 years ago. And we've all seen this episodes 39. There's 39 of them. We've seen them 100 times each. Yet it's a writing lesson, and it's just such a great. So you could really learn from everything. And if you write, just send it to Random Thursdays Radio Theater, and you might be on it too.
No, and watch. To Peter's point, watch when you're watching something. Don't just watch. Listen to what the words are.
Yeah, you're right.
Oftentimes, you get distracted on the screen. Listen to the words being said. Like it's a different medium, but the words that are in sitcoms and dramas are written to be performed by live people, not read by individual eyes. So there's a pattern to it. There's a pace to it. There's
Definitely
a inflection to it. Watch people who, if you watch your favorite series, whatever it may be, it's your favorite series for a reason. Watch it and listen to it. Don't just watch it. There's a reason that it's clicking with you, and learn from that.
And like the more you rewatch or reread your favorite plays, or if you're watching your favorite show, you will find all of the subtext in there. I can't tell you how many times I've watched The Wedding Singer, and shout out to Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore, and every time I've watched it probably almost close to like 50 times in my life. I love that movie so much. It's my favorite. But every time I watch it, I find something new. And that is really amazing because I also directed a production of the musical that Dany was in back in 2018. And I'm still finding new things about the characters and how they relate to each other and the subtext of their emotions and what they're going through. And it's amazing. But I also have one tidbit if you want to write plays. It goes back to what Dany was saying earlier. Like he observes, like you observe, observe how people talk, observe how people move. Because oftentimes a lot of the characters come from their physicality and the way they speak, not necessarily what's going on internally all the time.
Right.
So like for me, like with Familiar Strangers, I had very clear pictures of my characters and how they moved and how they spoke and how they dressed before I even gave them words to speak in terms of the storyline. I knew what they look like in my head. I've seen this scene play out. Heck, some of the scenes even happened to me in real life. So so it is the plethora of, I wouldn't say plethora, that's probably the wrong word. It is the culmination of observing, watching, listening, and reading, and using your brain and your feels.
Good
Guys,
exercise to practice writing is think of something that happens every day. Going to coffee with a friend of yours, getting gas. Write that down, but exaggerate the hell out of it.
yes.
Because you know
Yep.
what happened. You
Mhm.
were there. You can speak to it, but make it more fantastic. Use descriptive language. Get a little, be profane if you need to, but
Mhm.
it's gonna just help you just be more creative and expressive through your language.
Mhm.
It's really not exciting getting gas, but just play with what you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The aroma of the
Yeah.
gasoline
Honestly.
pinched my nostrils the way I would imagine a lobster clawing my nose.
Hey,
Like,
conversely, I went, the diesel is burning the hairs on the inside of my nose like I'm standing, I'm waiting for the Staten Island ferry. So two completely
I love
different
it.
interpretations of
That's
that.
funny.
It's
Yeah.
just how
It's just
that's
how the creativity
do
flows.
it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so so we can find your website. Your website address is www.randomthursdays.com, and I'll drop that in the description, and along with links to episodes and channels. And then where else can people find Random Thursdays Radio Theater?
There's a Facebook page. There's
Yes.
Instagram.
Awesome
Best
sauce.
way, just go right to the website, randomthursdays.com, or just download the podcast. There's so many episodes. There will be guaranteed something new.
For pulling this all together through COVID has been a journey, and I don't want it to stop anytime soon.
Yep.
You
Agreed.
listeners are in for a good treat, let me tell you. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show, on the Sweet Madness podcast. And I hope we have helped any of you aspiring playwrights out there, or if you're an actor who wants to dip into voice acting, please reach out. They're always listening. Dany and Peter are always willing to observe and gather new talent. We are the community ! Of the podcast theater, I guess. I'm not making sense now.
No, it makes sense to me for some reason. I don't know why, but it makes sense to me.
The
Okay, good.
random
That
Sweet Madness on a Wednesday.
There you go.
This is an episode of the Random Sweet Madness on a Wednesday. Love it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank
Sweet
you.
Madness listeners, we'll get you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.